Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody is fine and safe. And welcome to the webinar on Future Ready, the 12 Sunrise Export Sectors, to be conducted by Mr. Suhayl sir, who is the research advisor of our GoG-AMA Center for International Trade and also editor for the Foreign Update, which is a monthly magazine published by AMA. So with this note, I'll hand over the session to Abidi sir. Over to you, sir.
Thanks. So there was a query on the chat that people are not getting their PPTs. So please remind AMA, all PPTs are with AMA. I give to them before the commencement of the program. So if you have not received your copy, please remind them. No need to take notes. Better to listen, than to write. You can always go through the notes as well as our handbook and PPT at a later date. Okay, so we again start this program we will take 12 sectors which recently the government has announced as sunrise sectors. What does sunrise sector means? That these are the sectors which are meant for, which government thinks that they will take our exports to new heights in future. It doesn't mean that beyond these 12 sectors, there are no other sectors for export. There are other sectors also, their exports are also rising. But these are the large ones where we can expect significant growth in future. Some of these sectors, they are already big. Others can be made big. So we will see which are these sectors. And except for defense, aviation and electronics, all other sectors, we have already conducted programs. We have PowerPoints as well as the handbooks on these programs, which you can collect from AMA. Handbooks have to be paid for. I think it's a very nominal fee of, I think, 100 rupees or so. But PowerPoint presentations are free of cost. So let us take this journey of 12 sunrise sectors which the government has announced. And you must have been reading in the paper that government has also announced PLI, productivity linked incentives. That means they want to raise the manufacturing of these sectors, not only the size of manufacturing, but the cost of manufacturing. The bigger the scale, the more it will be cost effective and more it can capture our markets, capture markets for us in the foreign countries. So size of industry is very important, not size of the company as such, but size of the industry, because many of the companies are linked with each other through value chain. Garment is linked to textile, textile is linked to fiber, fiber is linked to ginning, ginning is linked to agriculture. So the cost structure depends on the whole process working in a seamless manner. Why the sunrise can? Because we cannot now depend only on commodities to raise our exports. Commodities like silver, like agricultural commodities, like rice, cotton, they are dependent on a lot of factors over which we have no control. Sugar, today we are drowning in sugar. Some years we have no sugars to export and government bans it. You must have seen it every year, this drama of onion exports takes place, where one time the farmer is forced to sell onion at 1 rupee, 2 rupees a kilo. And after a few months, the government bans export because the prices have risen to 80, 90 rupees. So commodities are not something over which you can depend from year to year. On a good year, they will do good business. On a bad year, they will not give enough business. China is exiting certain sectors. Chemicals is a very important sector which China is exiting. It is also exiting certain textile sectors. certain labor intensive sectors because the cost in China are rising. Secondly, the cost of pollution control is very high now, and companies have shut down because they cannot manage to um, redo their manufacturing activities in line with the new laws. So, exiting of China from many sectors opens up certain opportunities in India. In traditional exports, we cannot compete against low labor countries where the only condition of purchase is the cost. There is no other reason, especially when we deal with certain types of high volume um, uh, garments such as t-shirts, jeans, etc. T-shirt is 30% of total garment outsourcing. 20% is jean. So here for the lower end of the market, the cost is very important. So these are areas where we are continuously losing market share. So we have to build up our markets in such a way that we don't compete against these low labor countries. Even low labor countries like Vietnam and Bangladesh, today they are suffering because of the rise of Cambodia and Myanmar, and also Ethiopia. Myanmar cost is the lowest in the world, almost 60% of Vietnam cost. So they are also worried, you know. So this is a area where you cannot win. Somebody else will come with the lower cost, So we have to find areas where we can add value and find a profitable area of export which is not dependent upon labor cost, you know. Low labor countries cannot compete in these sectors because these sectors require a certain amount of ecosystem, a certain amount of environment, industrial environment in the country. For example, auto sector, it requires a large number of components from very large number of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 companies. A car can consist of up to 25,000 parts, So you should have the capacity to assemble a car in the country. That capacity is not available in every country in the world. Same with chemicals. It relies on a large number of intermediate chemicals. Chemical industry itself is a very big consumer of chemicals. So you have to have a environment of value chain environment so that these sectors can flourish. Now COVID has shown that multinational corporations and other large buyers, they cannot depend on a single source of supply. If that supply stops or is disrupted, then the entire chain up to retail is disrupted. So they have to have a China plus one strategy where you have China plus another country so that you can match the exports and you are not deprived of the products at the right time. It doesn't mean that the exports will go 50-50 in China plus other country. It can be 80-20, it can be 70-30, but certainly certain amount of business can come. And it is up to the country to ensure that it is globally competitive. And many of our government's incentive schemes are tailored for keeping India globally competitive. So government is creating a positive environment through policies where PLI itself will cost about $3 billion. $3 billion, not 3 billion, but $30 billion. It is about 2 lakh crores. And that is not the end of it. First, government announced lower figure, then it added up more sectors because it saw some positive changes coming because of this investment. So now the government has almost put a commitment of spending $30 billion to raise the standard of our manufacturing within next 5 years. So McKinsey and Company, the international renowned management consultancy firms, the largest consultancy firm in the world, it has recently announced 11 high potential value chain in India, which can more than double the manufacturing GDP in a few years, maybe 5 years or so. You see? And now, with all this, India is being seen not as an alternative to China, but a global source which can stand on its own and in many sectors can compete. Hopefully, in the next 5 years, we should be able to compete in many sectors, including sectors like aerospace. What is this high potential value chains of McKinsey? You see, McKinsey has put our sunrise sectors. Their classification of sunrise sectors may be a little different from what government says. But if you go through, there is 90% commonality between the two. And it says that we have to move forward in 3 directions. In fact, not in 3 directions, but in 3 different ways. One is where our sectors are matured. That is our vehicles, pharmaceutical. They are now matured sectors. We are globally competitive. But our scale is not big enough to take a rising share of the market. We are still at 1.7% of the global international trade. If we have to take it to 3.5% by 2025 and 5% and 5% by 2027, then our industries, companies have to scale up to larger scale. For example, not even a single vehicle component company in India is in the world's top 100. In fact, there is one only, Motherson Sumi, which entered this list 2-3 years back. But apart from that, we were expecting at least 5 companies will enter this sector. But not any other company except Motherson Sumi has reached top 100. Because the other companies are also moving upward. It's not that they are waiting for us to join, but they are also growing. Then second comes the transforming sectors, where we have established companies, but they have not reached anywhere. I mean, example is our processed food. I mean, it is a 50-year-old country, but we are still selling achar and papad to Indian population. We have not moved beyond that. Most of our companies are very small, and they are not. It doesn't mean that the market is so big in processed food. I keep telling my viewers in our other program, market is so big in processed food that it can be our #1 sector, which is today petroleum products. It can overtake that sector and become. That is the strength of the raw materials available in this country. If we are able to move our raw materials to markets in a manner which the consumer demands, you see, then only we can reach that sector. Third is the sector which is seeding, that is just emerging, that is our electronics, aerospace, renewable energy. I mean, in some of these sectors, at one time we were exporters, like renewable energy, solar panels, etc. Till about 5-6 years back, we were net exporters of this product. Electronics also, but we did not invest enough in these industries, and today we are nowhere. But the future is very bright, as we will see now, and this is an area where again we can take a good. It is a hard road, but we can definitely take a big slice of the world markets. Today, the conditions in the global markets are favoring us. You must have read in the newspapers in the last week and 2 weeks that many international economic organizations, international monetary organization, Nikkei, the Japanese economic consultancy, they have put India's growth for 2021 to around 8 to 9 to even 10%. To a few days back, the chairman of TCS came up that India will grow at 10%. So definitely there is lot of thoughts behind these statements, and already we are seeing many of our sectors, the exports are rising. We could have risen still further, but we have, as usual, many roadblocks in our export markets. Most recent this is the shortage of containers. Because our imports are declining, we are not having enough container. So exporters are, not only they have to wait for 4 to 6 weeks, but the container rate has gone up by at least 20 to 30%. So that puts you can say a stop to our export potential. These type of problems, they have to be solved on a permanent basis, and it is not for a company, but it is for government and the trade organizations, the trade associations, the FICCI, etc. They have to sit together and find a long-term solution. So you see, these are the three type of companies which we have today, and our 12 sectors, they fall in one of these three. All of them have potential. It is not that scale one has potential or transform one has, or see, all of them have potential, but more effort is required from all uh, sectors of the I would say the economy. So as the McKinsey says that it has the potential to add 320 billion to GVA. GVA means sum total of the uh, products. Products, raw material turns into intermediate material, cotton turns into yarn, that turns into cloth, that turns into garments. So the value chain, at each level, certain value is added. So this is the size of the value addition over next 6 to 7 years if we put our efforts. And government has also put its effort. Only this year I have seen that kind of activity in the government, I would say the area, which we have not seen for last many years. The way they are devising and the way they are moving forward in putting up the policies, the investments required, and cleaning up the road out of roadblocks, etc. Out of these, 6 items are the most important: chemical, food processing, electronics. In my opinion, food processing can be equivalent to all 5 combined. That is the potential that exists. What is a value added export? you know so this is our export market. Let's say it is our castle. It is our castle. Now these are our competitors who are attacking our markets through various means, through price, through features. But if we can create a moat around our products, then the attackers cannot get in. And that moat is value addition. The more value we add, the less competition we face in the market. For example, we are a big exporter of fresh fruits and vegetables, but where can we export? Gulf countries, Singapore, Maldives. Beyond that, we cannot export at a reasonable cost of transportation because fresh fruits have a limited life. If we transform it into frozen fruit, then it can be transported throughout the continent, throughout the globe. But it is not here. This is the place where we lack. We are nowhere near the frozen market in the top 10 countries of the world, although we are the second largest producer of fruits and vegetables in the world. So you see, we are stuck here. We should be here. But even then, this is also not full value addition. Still, you have value added convenience food, which during COVID have taken the market to new heights. So the more value you add, the bigger is and deeper is your moat, and better protected is your castle. So the attackers today are attacking on our low priced garments from every sector, because a major cost, almost 30 to 40% cost, is only labor cost. So they are easily able to breach our moat. But if we add value, for example, organic jeans, then Bangladesh cannot compete. Vietnam cannot compete. So that is where we have to add value. And even RBI recently has said that slowly, maybe too slowly, we are taking a swing away from traditional low value added exports into higher value added manufacturing and technology driven items over the past decade. Now that has to accelerate. If we have to take our exports to a 1000 billion by 2025, then we have to accelerate the process of value addition. Let us take one first sector, Indian auto component sector. It has done very well. In last year alone, it had an export of $15 billion. But in 2026, we are expecting $80 billion out of a total revenue of 200 billion. Balance is domestic sale. But very little R&D takes place in auto component sector. Either we have very, very small companies which are only in the after sales market. They don't supply unless you are a certain scale. The car assembling companies, that is what is called the OEM companies, that is our Maruti, Hyundai, Chevrolet, they will not touch you. If you want to be a global supplier, then you should have your ability to supply large amount of parts globally. It is a very, very tough market because the penalties of not providing just in time are very high. So you have to be not only large, but your supply chain has to be so well oiled machinery that you are able to supply as and when the product is demanded, which we are not able to do so at present. Only industry I would say is able to some extent is our forging and casting industry, which is the second largest in the world. That is the only industry where we can have this kind of supply. Although India is fourth largest passenger, it is seventh largest commercial. It is the largest two-wheeler manufacturer. But you see, our entire two-wheeler market is in Latin America and Africa. We have no market even in a country like Myanmar, which is next door, because we don't have products for those markets. The entire market from Myanmar to Vietnam, including Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, it is all scooter market. Unfortunately, we stopped manufacturing. Bajaj stopped manufacturing scooters some years back. And today, only scooter companies are probably the Honda company is there. And some of the newer companies are there in the scooter. But by and large, we have given up on this market. So foreign companies have, like Honda and many Chinese, they have entered and captured this market. We should have captured part of this market, like we have captured African market, like we have captured Latin American market, Like we have captured Bangladesh market. Bangladesh 75% two-wheelers are our motorcycles. But same success we have not found in the Southeast Asian countries. And now with the RCEP agreement signed by those countries and India keeping out of it, the tariff rates which India manufacturers will face will be much higher than earlier. So we have to devise newer methods to sell in such markets. So we have major markets. US is our biggest market. Turkey is a big market. Turkey, we must remember that Turkey is also a re-export market. Products from Turkey go to many other countries. Bangladesh, Mexico, Brazil, Germany. These are our existing large markets. In future, we can sell to, our casting products are among the lowest cost in the world. But we are not able to supply to South Korea, Japan, because we are still doing the iron casting. We have very little production of aluminum casting. Now, industry is the trend in the industry is for um, um, for fuel economic cars, and for that you require lighter cars, you require more of aluminum parts and more of plastic parts, and that is where we fail. So if we can create an industry which is capable of supplying products which are demanded by the market, markets are not static, they are always changing, then we can have a much bigger market. Even a country like, you see, Morocco, we have not done much to export our auto components. Why? Because in Africa, we always supplied through South Africa was the only large auto manufacturing country in Africa. To some extent, Egypt was there. But we did not see the rise of Morocco. Morocco today is challenging South Africa, and maybe this year, maybe next year, depending upon COVID, recovery, it will become the largest in Africa, and it is closest to Europe. So, to its exports to Europe are also rising, and its exports to Africa will also rise. But we have very little presence in Morocco because we don't keep our eyes open for new markets which are opening up. At the Morocco auto trade fair, I mean, 2 years back, I checked the exhibitors list. There was hardly any exhibitor from India, and this is the largest, auto manufacturing country in Africa. So, like that, we have many such markets where we have to keep our eyes open, and for exporters, good to go to newer markets where there is less competition. So keep your eyes open for new opportunities which are arising. So we are today second largest casting and forging nation. We took over from sixth position in 2012. 2012, we were number 6. Today we are number 2. But our production is not geared for large scale supply of forged parts to major companies, so because we have to put more effort into aluminum casting, and tomorrow we may have also many parts coming out of magnesium casting. Secondly, so we are largely exporting, things which have been given up by major countries like US, etc. We are exporting manhole covers and things like that. Low cost, low margin, which they have stopped doing it. If you go to USA, all the manhole covers you will find are made in India, because they don't find it they have moved on to value added products. So this is the change we have to, and this is a continuous change. There is no stopping here. It is a continuous change. The from aluminum it may go to other things. Then electric vehicle is coming. What will be the future of casting forging industry? We do not know, because much of the products may not be required in the engine parts are not required. So many parts will not be required in electric vehicles. So after 2030, when a large number of electric vehicles are on the road, whether we will have, so these are the things we have to keep in mind. All the exporters have to keep in mind that where the industry is going, where the market is going, it has both threats and opportunities. You see, as we saw in the first few slides, scaling is very important. India has very few large scale units. If you don't have large scale units, you cannot provide original equipment to the assembling companies. They want a certain quantity. I mean, a Maruti, which manufactures lakhs of cars, they want the part manufacturers also to provide the same number of. So at the most, they may have 2 or 3 or 4. So they may have a part manufacturer may have to supply 2 to 3 lakhs items per year. So you have to be big. Now India has very few large scale in as compared to Brazil, which is a smaller casting production country, but it has higher number of larger units. So you have to keep on moving up the value chain if you want to capture the export markets. So our exports are $4.4 billion, while total export will rise to $141 billion by 2027. So 4.4 out of $85 billion is about 7-8-9%. So we must, being its second largest industry in the world, we should be able to get at least 12 to 15% of the market, double of what it is doing now. That is why we have to change the composition of our products and move into markets, higher paying markets like Japan, which has stopped making small cars. Korea, they are now only making medium and large size cars. So every unit they buy, it is a higher priced product. So now you see, this is the condition today. Steel is maximum, but it will go down. The steel auto parts from here, it will go down here, while aluminum, magnesium, which is here, it will go up. So this is how the change is taking place. And unless industry is aligned to this fact, it will not be able to take good share of the market. So now the changing, as I said earlier, changing market is now emerging markets, they are growing. It is not the mature markets are growing. Mature markets only require replacement vehicles. But emerging markets, the first time buyer will be there. So we have to put our efforts into the emerging markets, especially when China is exiting many of the sectors. So one of the emerging markets is very big next door is Africa. Why it is such a big market? Because it is a common market of 53 countries. It would have become this year, it would have implemented African Continental Free Trade Agreement, but because of COVID, it has been postponed to 22. In 22, this entire continent will become one market. No, whether you import from here, import from here, import from here, and distribute anywhere in the continent, it will have one tariff and one import rules. So that is the, and if you see within this market, why Morocco is increasing its production? Because it is seeing this market expanding because of this reason. That a single market of one, the 130 crore, just a little below the population of India. A large part of it is now peaceful. Average GDP will be 6% minimum throughout the next decade. All this will require, when it is doubling the size of the manufacturing, and now along with cars in Morocco, two-wheeler will also increase. Egypt, Kenya, Uganda, they are getting ready to build two-wheeler markets. South Africa, 3 Indian plants, three-wheeler plants have already been set up in Africa. One is producing and 2 more are in implementation. And similarly, we will see more and more two-wheeler production in Africa, but parts will come from India. If India will not supply, it will come from other countries. But the parts have, so this market is now changing from consumer market, where it was importing even toothpaste, toothbrush, to intermediate goods market, where it wants to import textile chemicals, where it wants to import parts for manufacturing. So all these things it will be importing, and we have to keep that in mind as exporters. So coming to the next stage is processed food. As I said, it is has the potential to become the biggest export sector in India. It has the potential. Already it is the one of the most popular cuisine in the world. So if healthy food means more of vegetables, more of plant-based foods, more intake of vegetables, more intake of juices, supplements, all of these we can produce in very large quantity for the world markets. But we are not doing today. You see, Indian takeaways in the recent COVID, demand has increased by 300%, for Indian. So Indian food and Indian cuisine is very popular throughout the world. And if you go to Japan, if you go to Korea, you will find them eating at least many times a week. And there are chain restaurants, very large number of chain, called curry. Japanese, Koreans are big consumers of curry. And if you see in the market, you will see Javanese curry, Thai curry, but you will never see an Indian curry. Although the curry itself is a import from India through Britain in the previous century. But we have not bothered to look into the market research. We have not bothered to see where the markets are. So we are deprived of this market. Sooner somebody else will take products to these markets. So it is a gold mine of opportunities. Just see, we are the biggest exporter of basmati rice. We are also the biggest exporter of prawns in the world. Two commodities, we are the world's biggest exporters. But prawn biryani comes from an Australian company prepared in Thailand and sold in UK and US. None of the Indian companies have made any attempt to find markets for our prepared products into the affluent market who can afford to pay. So this is a very, very large market, Now what is this lentil soup? It is nothing but kali masoor dal, you see, with a little vegetable thrown in. Every day, every Indian, rich and poor, consumes dal. And dal has become the new soup in the Western world. Because of the healthy lifestyle, they are taking more of these as soups and less of meat and chicken soups. India is the second largest producer of groundnut in the world, but we have negligible markets for processed peanuts. Negligible market. It is not a big rocket science. It is not something that you have to bring technology from Japan or someplace. It's a matter of doing research, finding markets, finding products which will meet the requirements of those markets, converting raw materials into products which can reach those markets. This is a very interesting product. Among the drinks, fermented drinks today are among the highest after COVID. Growth is the highest for fermented drinks. Um, uh, and because of their perceived benefits in immunity building. Now, this is if you go to North India, especially in winter these days, you will see at any bus stop or a train station or most of the roadside stall this drink being sold, kanji. It is a fermented drink made for purple carrot. But we don't even know that such a market exists. But a Turkish company has launched these products in the European markets. They cultivate purple carrot. Actually the carrot, old the original carrot was purple in nature. It was not the orange color which we see today. So original carrot was this is the original carrot, and this is the drink which they have. But this should have been our drink, our export, because we are drinking kanji for a very long time. Similarly, Aam Panna, roasted green panna drink. So many products are there in India which have yet to see the markets abroad. Our annual food production in processed form is less than 2%, some say 4%. While you see Malaysia, the food production 83% is processed, in US 65%. So if we are only exporting commodities, we cannot expect high prices. For high prices, we have to add value. So all these areas, coconut water, we are the largest producer of coconut, but we don't have any market, maybe very negligible market. The market has been captured by Philippines. Now this is a market, what we can do to capture the market. Now this is a market which is not, this product is not known in India. We don't use brine or vinegar, preserved vegetables in our country. We use oils and spices. But about 10 years back, the cucumber, gherkin is a form of cucumber, this export started. And today it has a value of 700 crores. This is the export. And this is now in last 2 years, 2001, this ready to, this consumer variety has been, earlier it was being exported in bulk, 50 kilo or cans, but now it is also being exported because the consumer, the wholesaler or retailer, they must be demanding that you do this thing and send it to us. And this further then started with gherkin, now it is baby carrots, baby corn, carrots, and other products are being added to this market. Such a low, I would say, a low technology product, but high value product. It is going to all the, very, very affluent and very demanding markets where the food import laws are very, very strict. So if we can do this for one product, why can't we do for other products? It is because somebody identified a niche, created a product, and put efforts into marketing. And now after a few years, they are deriving the fruits of the effort. Similarly, I don't want to spend too much time. I will go a little faster. You can get this presentation. And also we have a separate handbook on uh, processed food. We also have a separate presentation on processed food and many of these sectors. So please take it from ABA. So the healthy snacks market is also very big. It is such a big market in the pub, cafe and bar snacks. Very, very big market. But this is the market which we have in peanut snacks, and this is the market which has China, which imports peanuts from India, but exports 10 times more than India. Why it cannot be reversed? We have to think about it. Similarly, chicky bar can be positioned against granola bar. So lot of items are there. There is no dearth of items. Then our ready to eat market, very, very high. As I said, the Indian cuisine is very popular. Even in a market like surimi, fish paste, nobody eats fish paste in India. But India is the third largest exporter and it is the lowest cost exporter in the world. We export this Japanese food to Japan. So these are stories which tell you that there are people who have started in a small way, but they have built up big businesses by doing market research and finding products which meet those market conditions. Then this is you see, cane sugar juice. We are nowhere in the export, although we are the biggest producer of cane sugar. The whole of Gulf market, it is such a hot market in climate as well in I would say in per capita income. Saudi Arabia, you can easily sell cane sugar juice. It is natural sugar. It is not the refined sugar. So it can have a very good market in many of these countries, and global warming is taking place. More of this type of products will be required in future. So we have many ingredients where we can be converted into saleable products. For example, Karela juice, very good for diabetes. There are 10,000 health stores in United States alone. But Karela juice, very difficult to drink. So you combine with anar juice, which will provide the sweetness. India is one first or second largest producer of anar in the world, but we have no markets for anar juice. We are only exporting low value, full, raw, fresh anar. Similarly, 20% of US population suffers from acidity, and rising population in India also is suffering from acidity, you know, because of our, eating of rich foods, prepared foods, junk foods, fast foods, whatever you call. So we have this ginger tea, which can be marketed for acidity, very safe drink. So like that, there are so many products. Ayurveda, our sprouted dal, we are consuming sprouted meals. We can export that. Ayurvedic tea has been introduced in Japan by a Japanese company. It is called Ayurvedic tea. It is not called natural or herbal tea. It is called Ayurveda. That means it wants to connect it to the Indian Ayurveda tradition. So all these things are creating markets for Indian food, but we don't have the infrastructure to prepare to do market research and to prepare, do product development as required for the product development, packaging development, and marketing. You see, Thailand, which looks 10 years ahead, in processed food, it created this infrastructure. It is called Food Innopolis. Those who are interested in this subject, they can go to Bangkok and go to this place, Food Innopolis. $2 billion Thailand government has invested in this integrated food processed food park. We don't have anything like it in India. Although we are a 10 times bigger country, we have a much higher proportion of food products available, raw material, spices available, but we don't have any place where people can go, small manufacturers can go and get their food production, their ingredients converted into food products which are demanded by the uh, affluent markets. Then come to our man-made fiber. This again, we have never been able to capture this market, although we are a very, very large producer of man-made fiber, that is polyester. You see, cotton is not able to keep demand with the market. This is the 2040. This will be the demand. It will be met by man-made fiber, and that is why the cotton prices are rising. So to reduce the price and to make the clothing available, we have to go into man-made fiber, and that is one of the reasons why Indian exports are not rising, because our exports are largely in the cotton sector. As you can see, this is the rising demand for polyester. This is the demand for cotton. It will continue to decrease as a ratio, not in absolute term, but as a ratio. And by end of this decade, 60% market will be man-made fiber. Now, today only I read in the paper that government has woken up to this sector, and it is making some, policy announcements will be made soon for man-made sector as well as for technical textiles, which is also a large part of it is made from MMF fibers. So here, because our production costs are high, our average productivity is low, production costs are high. Why productivity is low? Our average factory employs 100 people. In Bangladesh, it is 3,500. In China, it is above 6,000. So you can say how our factory is producing the cloth, producing the garment at a much higher cost because its scale is too small, And this is much to do with many of the laws, especially labor laws in the country, which does not give any chance for the factories to grow up. So Indians have gone to, those who want to set up large factories, they only have gone to Bangladesh. Raymond went to Ethiopia. It, it, it was going to start a factory in Bangalore, but it took it to Ethiopia because it sees total cost uh, much lower than what India can do. But hopefully, as today's paper, maybe shortly next month, in next year, we may announce, government may announce some policies for this sector, and then we can see whether they are appealing for our exporters. So India's only in 3 areas we can say we have a you can say we have a significant market share, not a great market share, but significant market share. In other areas, we have very little market share. This is one of our top best, you can say, best sectors. After COVID, especially, we have done very well in our export markets. It is growing at 20% per annum. Definitely, it will grow further with the PLI scheme, which is largely for the manufacturing of APIs. That means the active component in a medicine. Medicine consists of many components. Active one is called the API, like in paracetamol, the headache and fever reducing drug. The active component is paracetamol, but it is combined with many other products to make the capsule or tablet. But that is mostly imported from China. Now government has woken up that we must produce our own APIs. But I think that if we go full out on this production of APIs, our export markets can get ahead of our by 2030 it can get ahead of our generic medical medicine market. That is the size of market which is available. And apart from China, only India among the developing countries can produce these things. And many of the multinational like AstraZeneca, Pfizer, they are coming out of this market. They don't want to produce APIs. So very huge market is there. And if we capture, it can be 60 to 100 billion dollars in API exports alone by 2030, provided the growth continues in a particular manner. This is a very, in my opinion, a very uh, conservative figure. It can be much higher. Today it is like this. We are 25% of the total export is API, but it can be 50% by 2030 if we continue with our efforts. So many of these APIs are produced in small companies, in small factories. They are not required in large quantities. So small, manufacturers, entrepreneurs, exporters, they can look into this sector. Every chemical here is not required in large quantity. Then medical device, we have already seen this year our our protective equipment like mask, gowns, etc. They have made a huge exports. In fact, exports were banned for the first few months, but they have resumed now. And in my opinion, this is a pre-COVID projection. It will be much higher than this. It is a largely Gujarat oriented manufacturing, and even in many of the from low technology to very high technology products, today there are 5 companies in Gujarat itself which are manufacturing stents. And recently SMT received a very big order of 40,000 stents from Italian government. So that shows that our products can stand against the products of the multinational corporations. So that gives us great deal of confidence that our smaller companies can do very well in the international markets in medical devices. Similarly, you see, number of production has gone up and it will continue to be like this. We will continue to, today we are producing about 8 lakhs per day, and this market will continue for next 5-6 years, the global market, because not only COVID will take about 2 years more to completely eradicate, but that countries will stockpile supplies for next emergency. See, the growth has been revised from 6.5% pre-COVID to 10% post-COVID. Medical equipment alone, we are growing at 20% per annum. This is again an area where continuous growth will be there because more hospitals are coming up due to COVID, more facilities will be built, and these are the new areas where we are starting efforts into exports. Again, non-woven, other technical type, we have already covered this, and government will come up with some more policy announcements soon. Then specialty chemical, my favorite sector for export is specialty chemicals. I think it is our great, China has done us a great service by exiting from this sector. Many of the products which we were importing from China, today we are exporting to China. Only today I read in some news about one company which is exporting some of these products to China, where earlier they were importing. In certain areas like paint and pigments, agrochemicals, we command large markets abroad. And as I said earlier, the India, many of these sunrise products, these the smaller countries, which are giving us trouble in garments, they cannot compete here because it is a complete environment in which the products are made. India manufactures over 70,000 types of chemicals, and these chemicals go into production of other chemicals, you know. So you need a full ecosystem for this industry to take roots. It cannot do it like by putting 100 sewing machines and your garment factory starts working. Here you have to put in big investment in R&D, in skilled manpower, and in a large production base. Some of these areas, where we are providing chemicals to the Indian companies whose products are then globally competitive, like textiles. A textile production requires, industry requires about 2000 chemicals in various processing. And India is one of the second largest textile manufacturing country in the world. And it requires so many hundreds of textile chemicals. So when we provide textile chemicals to Indian textile companies, we make them globally competitive. Rising market in food and natural colors, where we are leaders. In developing countries now, new industries are coming up, basic industry, textile, leather, agro, which require specialty chemicals. Whole of Africa does not produce anything. We are still, our share is very small, but hopefully it will rise. You see, many of the products, we are global leaders. In fact, 50 to 75% market share, global market share for many products are with Indian companies. So this is an area where a small manufacturer can also enter. You don't have to be a Ambani to set up a large petrochemical complex. Here, small manufacturer like you see so many in Vapi, and you have started in a small way. Here you can grow from small to big because it's a batch process. It is not a continuous manufacturing process. It's a batch process. As your market size increases, you can keep on increasing your production capacity. Coming to technical textile, there are 12 sectors. We are today leaders in 3 sectors. One is home tech, pack tech, cloth tech. These are our main, and now from this year, meditech. These are our main export sectors, and much of the raw material is available within the country. Only thing is we don't have the technical know-how to produce many of these high uh, technology products. But India government has come up with 8 center of excellence throughout India, and you can go there and get if you have a product or idea in mind, something, you can get them to produce it for you. So these are the 3 main things: pack tech, home tech, Indotech, our main export items, and these are also the items where we have big markets within India. Now we have been given a separate code for HS code for technical textiles, so that we know exactly how much we are exporting and how much we are importing. Earlier it was all part of textiles. So we have many advantages in technical textile. It is one of the rising sectors, and Indian government announced today that they will come up with some more policy interventions shortly. So these are some, just a little guidance on some of our larger products. I don't want to spend too much time on it. You can read our handbook on technical textile. Then we come to services. These are the list of services which WTO calls services. And this is also an area where we have a very large export, $260 billion last year, and the future is very, very bright. The total trade is rising in favor of services now. From merchandise, it is rising, and very soon in future, services trade will be more than the merchandise trade. And much of the trade will take place due to digital transformation that is taking place, especially accelerating after COVID-19. These are some of the statistics to show that how important this sector is. During COVID, many of these sectors have not seen any growth. In fact, it has declined, especially tourism, medical tourism, which was a rising, almost bringing $1 billion into the country. It has suffered greatly, and also tourism, also logistics. But what has gained is online recreation, online gaming, audiovisual, Zoom, and by and large, the common person is today convinced that technology has a large role to play in their problem solutions. This realization has come after work from home and many other changes, behavioral changes which are taking place due to COVID-19. Our education system, the whole system is running on mobile phones today. So this will only accelerate in future. But within this, what are our areas where India will excel? One is India will excel in the export of talent, people. By 2030, we will be the only country which will be talent rich or talent surplus. No other country in the world, whether it is China or US, will be talent surplus. And today also, India is fulfilling many of the shortages which are taking place in countries like UX for many of the technology related jobs. All these markets, there is a great shortage of people. So these are all the areas where we have software opportunities. I don't want to go into details of it. You read our books on services export and our program which was conducted, I think 2 months back on services export. The handbook and the PowerPoint are still available with AMA. So that will give you in detail these markets, especially for example, SAS market, software as a service. People do not want to buy software, they want to rent software. That along with cloud market, it will be a very big market for India. These are some of the records, no need to just scan it, just to tell you that how big the market is, and for every type of digital service. Then along with digital is knowledge process outsourcing. We are also doing well in, for example, in it's a leading center for image outsourcing. That means an image of a of a patient is taken in USA. It is sent to India. A radiologist reads it and puts his finding, and it is sent back to the 12 hours difference. When it is day in US, it is night here. So next day morning when the doctor comes, he has the report in hand. Today it is taking up to 21 days for a report to come out of a imaging services in UK. It is taking up to 3. There is such a shortage of radiologists in UK and many other countries. that in US it is taking up to 10 days. So there is a huge market for various types of knowledge process outsourcing, and that can go into legal outsourcing, preparation of contracts, etc., architectural outsourcing, and the sky is the limit for this area. Remote education, for example, teaching of English. There is such a huge market in China for English language teaching, huge market, and we are the lowest cost providers. If you put our cost and compare it with the British Council cost, you will find that our Indian, many of the organizations are giving these lessons at half the cost. Of course, the difference may be there. One difference, of course, is branding of British Council, but still there are markets where people cannot spend that kind of fees. So they may go for lower quality, but at least they have some speaking abilities. Talent export, very important. 2 lakh software people will be required only in Japan. They are not getting, now they are going up to Bangladesh to hire those people. From so many of the Bangladeshis today are being recruited to go and work in Japan. Many countries like Taiwan, South Korea, they are attracting people with special visas, which never they did before. Japan had the hardest, or you can say strictest rules for resident visa, but today it is the easiest country to get resident visa. You can get it within 1 year. So because they want, their industries cannot survive without talent. Cyber security, automation, robotic. How will they get the products made when there is no software for it? So they need people, and only place where they can hire is India. "500 farmers have gone from Andhra to do farming in Africa." There is a shortage of farmers in Africa because so much land has been taken over by Indians that they need farmers to come and do the farming. So in every area you find that skilled people are required abroad, and this will only accelerate in future. So instead of sending labor to Gulf countries, now we will be sending engineers, project engineers, uh, port engineers, then management people who can manage ports, who can manage airport. All these people will be required. So future is very, very bright for all types of services exports. Then this is an area which has suffered recently because it's not an essential commodity, and COVID, many people lost their job, many people lost their income. So this has suffered recently, but I'm sure that within a year or two it will come back to. Already there are signs in last month or two, our export of finished diamonds has gone up due to the Christmas market in US. So already some changes are there, but large scale changes will take place another year or so. What one has to look at other markets beyond US, and biggest market is China, although we are having problems with China, but I am sure that they will continue to import diamonds. They have no other source. They cannot import diamonds from Pakistan. They cannot import diamonds from Sri Lanka. They have to import diamond, and to satisfy the needs of the growing middle class, they need diamonds and jewelries imports. So this is the 3 reasons why more and more countries you will see growing import of diamond and jewelry, especially China. You see, China, this is the market which is first developed in China, where Shanghai, Guangzhou area. And here the income of a average Chinese is 8 times that of a income here. Now next markets to develop are these, central, northern, and finally markets in. This is how the Chinese government is creating infrastructure, so that now the income will also from here, income will also generate here, income will also generate. So this market will continue to grow, and we can see that Chinese will become the biggest market for diamonds and jewelry in the world. So main thing is that keep track of changing trends. Those who are exporting, the trends are changing very fast and light. And now there is a demand for unique handmade jewelry also, which are unique in the sense that they are not machine made, not like chains and rings, etc. But more of uniqueness is there, more of earrings, etc. So they will also, now India is one of the few countries where handmade jewelry is still practiced. Electronics, I will go now very fast. These are new areas. They are just opening up. And today only we saw in this has been a great success that we are exporting now $3.2 billion, but still we have only 1.2% market share. And all this export has come in the last 5 years. Current rank is, world rank is number 12, but hopefully it should go to 10 or 9. Next, government wants to replicate the success in laptops and tablet manufacturing. The problem here is that we cannot increase or put any import duties on these products. Under international laws, WTA laws, all information technology products duty has to be zero. So we can, like in many other products where we have increased duty on Chinese products, on electronic products, we cannot increase the duty. What we can do is create conditions where the production is competitive. So now the government is next is laptop tablets manufacturing, and of course after that will come the PCB, because this is a natural progression. It is very much a part of laptop, tablets, mobile phone, and any other device. So this is something where we are rank is very low, but and this has been because of the, as we saw in the McKinsey side, because we have not invested enough and allowed our markets to become non-competitive. So it has a huge growth, and it has a special scheme from Government of India. And today only I read this in this newspaper that Tata will invest $1 billion. Now $1 billion where Tata invest, it will also create a value chain, and many of the small scale manufacturers will enter into some of the things. So I suggest that those who are interested, they keep looking at the trade fairs and see what is changing and where you can enter into the very profitable value chain, at what end you can enter. Defense is a very new sector. We don't know much about it, although there is a lot of hype about it. Its export of from SMEs are not known, or because much of the export of SMEs must be for dual use products, for example, which are called, sorry, like our fastener section. Fasteners are required, nuts and bolts and other such products required for defense. They are required for aviation. They are required for auto also. But the specification and the stringent quality changes from sector to sector. So now SMEs are entering, and government is uh, uh, giving more opportunities. So those who have the interest, they should keep in touch with National Small Industries Corporation. Government will provide all help and all knowledge for SMEs through NSIC. Aviation is again a very big sector for the future. Very high hopes of potential for manufacturing drones, UAVs, aviation components. Already we are exporting about $1.5 billion worth of aviation components, and future is very bright. Those who are interested, they must go to next year, visit Aerospace Expo and see where again You see, these are areas where there is a long, like auto industry, there is long value chain. There is a OEM who produces the artillery gun, and behind them are tier one producer. Some will produce rubber parts, some will produce springs, some will produce forging items, up to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, up to tier 4, who will provide basic materials. So there is a big and there is large scope for small and medium industries to enter this value chain. And so many new companies have come up in the last few years to take advantage of the our new aerospace markets. Boeing itself has 225 suppliers in India. I was surprised to find, and they want to export $2 billion worth of products from India. And all other manufacturers, they are also setting up. So there is somewhere along the line, you will find that there is if nothing else, a lot of companies will provide the scope for fasteners. We are already, now a fasteners in aerospace can cost up to $8 to $10 for one piece. The same piece for car may cost 50 cents or $1. So that 10 times the cost is due to the precision and low volume of products required. You don't require these products in that same quantity as you required in car production. So low volume plus high precision. But once you have a capability of producing these things, you can get markets in other products also, like railways, like car production, because now you have reached a level of precision which other companies cannot match. So the advantage of those who are entering into the aerospace is their skilled and their production capacity, which is meant for very high precision, high quality, high standards of manufacturing. Carbon fiber, already some companies from Gujarat. In fact, at one of our programs, we brought one manufacturer from Ahmedabad who is exporting carbon fibers to aerospace companies in USA. So there are these are small companies. Their turnover is not more than 50 to 100 crores, and they are supplying this kind of advanced material to companies abroad. Now this is the end. Last is clean energy, very big market. It was actually, the market was there earlier, but because of unrestricted imports, the Indian industry was completely decimated. Now again, government is putting custom duties from 2022 onwards, 1st April, very high custom duties, so that Indian industries can again rejuvenate. But Indian market itself is very, very big, so that the companies which manufacture, they will manufacture at a lower cost, and it will provide the possibility for exports to other countries. Now here the export market is not only to supply the products. The export market is also in designing, in installing, in maintaining, in retrofitting. So whole range of services are required to be exported along with the products. Africa alone will require a huge amount, and $7 billion have been given in loan by World Bank for solar, because a large part of Africa there is no electricity, so they need off grid and mini grid supplies. So lot of small ecosystems can be built on regional and local markets. So this is the of our total sector presentation. Of course, detailed presentation you can get how we can increase the board. I mean, we saw this factory in Bangalore about a week back, which was ransacked by the workers. They were not getting full wages. This is the problem of contract workers. Government, unless provides reforms with safeguards, you cannot simply say that these contract workers are left to the whims and fancies of the companies. They must provide safeguards that they are getting paid regularly, their PF is being deducted, they are getting overtime, they are getting free time. All these things are not being done properly, as the government report which was issued yesterday on the windstorm, this factory which was making mobile phone. So unless these things are done, we will lose, fewer companies will enter India, because they will see it is a not a stable country for manufacturing. So it's for government to use proactive measures to ensure that there is justice for contract workers, because this contract number of contract workers will keep on increasing. And some years back there was violence in Maruti factory also. Some people was killed there. Here unfortunately nobody died. So we have to, second, custom reforms must use blockchain. There is a lot of fraud going on customs. You can say these paperwork movement, and customs to check the fraud, etc. They use go to extraordinary paperwork. But now technology is coming, like blockchain, which can ease this thing. So we should do more and more work in this area, so that custom reform takes place. This is one of the biggest problems in exports. Along with that, port reforms, faster turnaround of ships. You see, Shanghai today 24 hours, and here our average ship time is 4 to 5 days, and just 2-3 minutes I will take. Reduce waiting period of trucks. JNPT, a truck has to wait for 5 to 6 days, minimum 3 days. Then who pays the cost for it? The customer, the exporter. This is very important. Realignment export promotion agencies. I mean, they still go and the old way of doing businesses. I don't want to go into great detail about it. For us, we must make full use of whatever the government is giving assistance. The market access initiative scheme. I mean, government provides up to 5 crores for setting up of showrooms and warehouses in foreign countries. But how many companies have taken it? Very few. I mean, we have such a large tile industry in Morbi. Why can't people come together and make a warehouse in countries like Indonesia, which is now increasingly buying Indian products, Indian tiles? Make a warehouse there itself. Government is providing, but no small company can do this job. It has to be done um, as a as a group level. So that's what I call is cooperative competition. Cooperative where is possible in logistics, and compete in getting markets, in getting customers. There is an area where you can cooperate. If you cannot cooperate, you cannot get big markets. Do thorough market. I find that I'm doing this program for last 10 years. I find that there is very little interest in market research. We keep on doing this program. At least I conduct 3 to 4 times a year. Next, again, first week of February, I'll be conducting how to find export information. But the skills have to be developed by individuals. In 1 hour program, you cannot develop the skill. You have to practice, you have to develop the skill, and you have to spend several hours every week in market research. Then you can discover hidden and little known market. Just as I said, hardly, I asked so many times at our programs that give me the number 1 meal in Japan. Nobody comes forward to say that it is curry rice, actually. Because people have not done their market research. Once you start doing market, then you find those markets. Then you know the ways to reach those markets. So this is the starting first step. Thank you very much. I will take a few questions if there are any.
Sir, thank you very much, Abidi sir. Actually, I thought the questions can be sent to AMA because already it was 5:30. So I thought
okay. Yeah, it was a long session because the number of sectors were very. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think I have clarified many of the points which these people may have. So I'm shutting off now.
Yeah, sir, and I'll make sure the PPT reaches to them. So I think queries will be solved. Thank you. And in case you are not getting any PPTs, please mail it to AMA. So we'll forward it whichever PPT you require.
Thank you everybody at AMA for managing this program so well. And we will meet again on, I think, 9th of
January
for 9th of January. Yes.
RCEP program.
Yeah. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
Good night and take care.
Yeah, sir. Good night, everyone. Good night, all the participants for attending the program. We look forward to your participation in future webinars. Thank you. Stay safe. Take care.